minutes is really three inyanim. First thing is the halachas, which I hope we're all familiar with, about where to light Hanukkah candles bisman hazeh. But I want to bring out the history and the lumdus of it a little bit. I want to continue with my ongoing topic of Minhagim Yisrael and how they affect everything, or more important, what's the tokef of a minhag, what is that in Klal Yisrael? Again, to say what I've said in the last, whatever it was, 8-9 weeks, in a sentence, people say, well, that's just a minhag. My premise is that everything is just a minhag, meaning the fact that we go like the Ramah, not like the Shulchan Aruch, is a minhag. Klal Yisrael is based on minhagim, and therefore, and this is a yesod I want to bring out, I think, very clearly from here. Therefore, people say, why do we have to do that? Did Moshe Rabbeinu wear a yarmulke? Why do we have to wear yarmulkes? We wear yarmulkes. Yiddishkeit today is to wear a yarmulke. My daughters used to like to say that, the mohos wore nose rings. So, okay. It's not like, that was Al Pi Kabbalah, they wore nose rings, and we don't have that Kabbalah today. That's not Nahug. It's not Nahug. Today represents something else, and that it represented something else. So what is really never any question, because if I can say it in a way that can be misunderstood, but it's more clear, if that makes any sense, the Yiddishkeit or halacha evolves into what it is today. I know it's a treif word, but it's a true word in the sense of, in this case, it's a true word because how the halacha became what it is has very much to do with what the minhag is. And we talked about sneas, we talked about today, halacha psukihi, b'nais Yisrael, as we talked about last week, the week before. B'nais Yisrael, echmir al-atzman, afilu ra'iti, bastab kechardol, yoshavas alav zayin likiyim. All of a sudden, the women decided that it's no longer niddah, it's zava gedola, and it's no longer zivas dam, even a tzipas dam kechardol, chardol's b'chlal. Halacha psukihi, even though that toikif of it, as we learned from Rav Gusman last week, is a toikif of minhagim, nevertheless, it's halacha psuka. The Gemara calls it a halacha psuka. So this is how we got to where we are. The Gemara says as follows, as you know, that comes to Hanukkah candles. So the halacha is ner ishu beisai. Every house, you need a house involved to be chayiv. So there's no halachic issue Indian to light on top of your car or the town square. Ner ishu beisai. What the Gemara says is ner ishu beisai. There's a chiyuv of menorah. I don't know if it does any harm to do that kind of stuff. I also don't know if you're allowed to make a bracha on that kind of stuff. But what the halacha is, the din is, the takalas chazal l'shana acheres, after this Hanukkah story was ner ishu beisai. Pafartik, that's the halacha. Ner ishu beisai, the Gemara explained, should be every person, every household al pesach beisai mibachutz. It should be al pesach beisai at the doorway of their house mibachutz, like you'll see here all over the street. That you go to the pesach beisai. Let's make it easier. Let's assume you have a villa. A nachal yale, and it's very, very clear where your bias is, where your Pesach Beisai is, and where the chutz is. So Pesach Beisai be b'chutz, and in that the Gemara says it should be no lower than gimel tvachim from the ground, because otherwise it's batul to the karka, so that's about 24 centimeters. It should be at least 24 centimeters high, and the optimal place for it is 10 tvachim. 10 tvachim is about 80 centimeters. That's the perfect place to put your menorah outside. Where did 10 tvachim come from? Agav, I mentioned in the morning, which it's a chaviv olai. Where did they get 10 tvachim? Apitom 10 tvachim. It's not what is that? So 10 tvachim was the height of the saragim, which were inside the chayva space hamikdash, and those were the ones that the Yevanim knocked down. So maybe Zecher the Sirog, it wasn't like a barrier. It was like you find in a movie theater, like those red velvet things that go from, it was, and from here, the Goyim go here, and the Jews go here. It was a Sirog, like a marking of where to go, and the Yevanim did not like that distinction between Jews and Goyim, so they knocked it down and we put it back up. And after that, the Mishnah Midah says Chazal were Mesakin to be Mishtachave by the Sarug. So that was 10 Tvachim. Maybe that's where 10 Tvachim comes in. And not higher than, what? 20 Amos, because 20 Amos, that's higher than a building. 20 Amos, Leishilta Ba'ela. Nobody's going to see it up there. So, same as a Sukkah, Leishilta Ba'ela, higher than 20 Amos, Leishilta Ba'ela. So, that's the sheer, that's what the Gemara says. Then the Gemara goes on to say, and this is really what my point is here, then the Gemara says that B'shas HaSakana, that if it's a Shas HaSakana, Meinichai al Shulchanai V'dayai. Just go inside, close the curtains, put it on your table, and like Hanukkah. It's in Hanukkah licht, that's all. That's like I did as a child. You just light the Hanukkah inside, sing Haneres Halalu, Mo Sur Yeshuasi, give Hanukkah presents and go leave, go back to shul. I mean, that was always the minhag. And this comes from the Shulchan Aruch, before Shulchan Aruch, Tafresh Ayin Aleph Sif Hey, where the Shulchan Aruch says clearly, I'll just read it to you. Shulchan Aruch says all the different cases. Ner Chanukah b'nicha al Pesach hasabach l'rishus harabim b'bachutz, im abayich pasuach l'rishus harabim b'nicha al Pischai, if you live on a high floor, that you have no direct entrance, egress or ingress from the Rishus Harabim. You light it in the window, as we know. Ubishas HaSakana, says the Shulchan Aruch, she'enoi rashoi l'kayim ha-mitzvah, where you're not allowed to do this mitzvah. Al-pi, what does he mean? Shasa Shakara she'enoi rashoi l'kayim ha-mitzvah, al-pi chok or al-pi halacha?
Yes, can't be al-sakana.
B'shas ha-sakana, she'enoi rashoi l'kayim ha-mitzvah. I'm just I'm opening your minds to a new shop, maybe. That the government doesn't let us do it. Who doesn't let us do it? The Shkotzim don't let us do it. What does it mean, Eina Rashoy? What does it let you do? Some vandals that come along and are going to kick your menorah over. They're not letting us do it. They're going to kick us. They're going to come into our house and kill us. Who's Eina Rashoy?
Put yourself in a sakana, man?
Well, maybe.
You can't put yourself in
Maybe.
a sakana.
Maybe. I'm just.
Rock through your window. Rock through the window.
That's sakana. So what's Eina Rashoy? I agree to
Isn't it
sakana.
saying you're not allowed to do it at a time of Shas Hashman?
Possibly we read this too fast, because it should have said Ubishas. I'm just making a hara. It should have said like the Gemara says. B'shas sakana b'nicha al shulchan v'daya. It's the Mechaber that adds this piece. Shulchan Aruch adds this piece. B'shas sakana she'enoi rashoi l'kayim ha-mitzvah, that you're not allowed to be m'kayim the mitzvah. Not allowed to be m'kayim the mitzvah. Yeah, I'm not. Let's say I don't mind getting rocks in my head in the middle of the night. What's Eina Rasha? Or the Chok says that I'm not allowed to do it, so that's not sakana. That's some kind of anti-Semitic law that says you're not allowed to do shchita, you're not allowed to do milah, you're not allowed to yevonim nikmitzu alai. What's the Eina Rasha? So it could be the pshat is. It could be. Just we'll look at the Rishonim in a second. Eina Rasha l'kayim mitzvah. That if it's a sakana, not only are you not allowed to put yourself in a buck of sakana, it's a matzav of sakana. So once it's a matzav of sakana, be'ezasi b'shatiyah, you're not allowed to put it outside because, let's say, even you're not afraid, maybe you're making a sakana for your neighbor. Like shtech nicht ois, the eigen from the goyim, as the expression goes. Maybe Eina Rasha, you have to appreciate, I just, before I even go further, I just want to, there's a sefer, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. This is called Kovetz Halachos, and it's the Piskei Halachos of Reb Shmuel Kabeletsky, Shlita, by one of his Talmidim. Beautiful, like every gadol is known for something else. I don't know if he's known for Piskei Halachos and Hilchos Chanukah, but boy, does he know Piskei Halachos and Hilchos Chanukah. But here the question is, Makam ad laka v'dini ad laka b'chutz la'aretz. Where do you light in chutz la'aretz? Now, to my knowledge, in Chutz La'aretz, everybody lights inside. Everybody. even if you're living in Lakewood, you light inside. Even if you're living in one of the developments in Lakewood where there were makbid that a guy should never step into the place and even knock in a nail, you light inside. Like what's the shtokin sakana? Why don't you light outside? Like over there, they should start lighting outside. L'chayra. So Shmuel Kamenetsky, Zaygazunt, he writes, Ubechutz La'aretz, Shadara ben Agoyim, Noigim, Shaloi lahadlik neros chutz labayis. You don't light candles outside. Ela madlikim b'fnim habayis b'chaloin, hasabel churshus around. So you see, it also could be dangerous, no? Like you light it in the window. V'yesh noigin kein afilu b'mkoyim sherubam kulam Yehudim. Even if it's in a place where everybody's Jewish. Ein l'shanois. And then he writes here at the bottom that this is the Lashon of Rav Shmuel. Umisha Oimer, listen to this footnote. Umisha Oimer shetzrichim lahadlik bachutz. If somebody will turn around nowadays and say you should light, we're talking about now in Chutz La'aretz, Los Angeles, Lakewood, we're Monsey. If somebody would say you should light outside, Einoi Mevin Matzovenu b'Chutz La'aretz. Our first English, what it means to live in Chutz La'aretz.
Shmuel's was like his own. He doesn't live in a good neighborhood. I know where he lives. My grandson learned this 7.5 years.
But he knows Lakewood. He knows about Lakewood.
Lakewood. But this is talking Philly.
I know where he lives, but to his house. But I'm saying he's not saying Eino Mevin Matzovenu b'Chutz La'aretz. Huh?
They do everything else. Also secretary and this and that and touring.
Walk down the house with a streivel, down the street with a streivel.
He's consistent with that. I was asked about walking a talis on Shabbos, and Rav Shmuel also paskins. I got to not do it.
Rabbi Yaacov Haber, his father, would stop people in Monsey in the street on Shabbos who were wearing a talis, and he would say to them, "Das ist nicht kein jüdischer Shtetl." That's what he used to say. That's where it comes from. So Agav, we have three things. Hilchos Chanukah. I'll talk about Hilchos Minhagim in a minute, but Hilchos anti-Semitism is also very interesting in Nogea L'Maisa because Einoi Mevin Matzovenu b'Chutz La'aretz. So somehow, and I'll explain this for a minute. Somehow, lighting outside is a nish verstehen the matzav of Chutz La'aretz, but he does say Chutz La'aretz, he doesn't say Eretz Yisrael. So it's an interesting thing. Now, when we talk,
Why would then there be a difference between lighting outside versus in the window? Like, shouldn't you light on your table?
So let's discuss that because I think it's a very deep point. So first of all, let's go back to the Gemara. The Gemara says b'shasa sakana. That's all the Gemara says. Menicha al shulchan adaya. It doesn't say this lashon of eina rashai, makom she'eina rashai. He says, welcome sakana. So Rashi on the Oifenord, Rashi says that what's the shasa sakana? We're not talking about shkatzim kicking in your window or something like flattening your tires. That's not the sakana. The shasa sakana is that there, in Bavel and in Persia, where we went, where we ended up going. So during the Persian Empire, or Persian, I shouldn't say the Persian Empire because that was earlier, but the Persian Minhagim in the streets and Babylonian Minhagim in the streets, they had just on Chanukah B'diuk a Yom Eid, a day of Avodah Zarah, like Christmas. So they had a day of Avodah Zarah. Don't know if that was there was always all the, if you look through Masechta Avodah Zarah, there was a holiday after holiday after holiday that the Ovdei Avodah Zarah had celebrating the winter solstice. The winter solstice is approximately December 25th, and that became so everybody was Mekadesh it or B'tamei it, however you want to look at it, in a different way. So you have all kinds of winter solstice celebrations, except for Hanukkah, of course, had nothing to do with that. But according to most opinions. But so you had a Persian holiday, and in this Persian holiday, Rashi says this history, that during this Persian holiday, you were only b'yoyim Edom, you were only allowed to light a candle outside in the church, in the Beis Avodah Zarah. Meaning, like in the Beis Avodah Zarah, they lit a candle. Let's think about it like a Christmas tree. So they lit a big light, and if you lit a candle outside of your house during this holiday, it was sacrilege. It was connected what everybody was celebrating outside. Hence, by the way, this is the answer. One of the answers to your question. If you light the windows, no problem. Nobody had anything against lighting candles in your house. The idea was like, but to make a barbecue, I guess it would have been us. So I don't know the Hilchos Persia, but this was what it was. So Rashi says that it was a shasa sakana. I'm asking you, like, what was the sakana? You get killed if you do this? Is that what it means? Shasa sakana.
Persecution for the Jews.
Persecution for the Jews, maybe.
So either you could say, like you're creating a anti-Semitic, not that they're going to come in and shoot you. Like, you lit a candle outside. I don't know if that, maybe yes, maybe no, but we don't. So what the Shas HaSakana, now I'll tell you, some Rishonim learned, late Rishonim learned, like the Chachmei Provincia, they learned that the Shas HaSakana, the Sakana was for the neighbors. They're going to come and confiscate your menorah. So it wasn't even a sakana that they're going to kill us. It was a confiscate your menorah. And then Nachmer, so what if it's a sakana? So to confiscate your neighbors, but I want to do the mitzvah. No, that you have to light for 30 minutes. And if there's a chance that your candles are not going to light for 30 minutes because some policemen, the Chanukah police are going to come along, the Avodah Zarah police are going to come along and extinguish your fire, walking around extinguishing everybody's fire. So now, how can you make a bracha on it? Poskim said it, early poskim. How can you make a bracha on it when you're not guaranteed that it's going to last for 30 minutes? Even though we hold on lakos and mitzvah, but nevertheless, it's not the right thing to do. So so that's according to Rashi. That's all a binyan in Rashi's line of the sakanas haparsim.
Why is that a sakana though? That's like if they're going to confiscate it. It's just not a
Sakana for the neighbors.
They're going to kill them? Then
Nobody's killing anybody. Who said sakana means killing everybody? Like, it's probably. I mean, I can't argue with Rishonim, but what seems to me is like what Yaakov was saying here. That you're creating an anti-Semitism. Like it's like wearing a talis and Mutzi on Shabbos. Which, by the way, everybody does. The Torah brings Rashi, and then he says that he argues the Torah brings from others. He brings from the Sefer HaItur. Sefer HaItur was at the same time as Bali Tosfos. That's what he was. So he brings the Sefer HaItur, which he quotes a lot. The Torah quotes a lot, I think, because he was a friend of his father, the Rosh. I think they learned together, so he had a lot of Torah from the Sefer HaItur. The Yitur says, no, that's not the sakana is not because of, he argues with Rashi, not because of the Persian rules, but because there was at different times, there was an isser to be Mekayim mitzvahs, keep shivtei. The Bach brings this, he talks about his mefalpul of this. There's simply, sometimes, there are times in history, which we all know, that you're just not allowed to do mitzvahs, and if you do, stay home. Like, don't do your mitzvahs outside in the street. Meaning legislated anti-Semitism. Haya, Hove, and probably Yiyah, until Mashiach comes. Different legislations, and not them, is probably countries today. Arab countries go do certain Arab countries go do mitzvahs outside. It could be Shasa Sakana, but not only Shasa Sakana, they're anti-Semites. Legislated anti-Semites.
Can't take it to Jordan.
You can't?
Cannot.
Didn't you just go to Jordan? You didn't bring tefillah? Yeah, think of it.
It's not anti-Semitism.
Okay, what is it?
They hold it to protect you. They don't want
From anti-Semites.
Name within Jordan might hurt you. So to protect you, you have to hide it.
Teretz for the Kachkas.
I thought during Shemad, the Gavke have to do the mitzvah.
Oh, so very good. Thank you for asking that question. So the Bach asked that question, like, where do we find where do we find that we chicken out from doing mitzvahs because we're worried about somebody, Shas HaShmad, we're worried about somebody's going to hurt us and do mitzvahs, do the mitzvahs.
That's the Havamina of Ein Rishai is the answer.
And a Rishai means what?
Means that even though there's a Havamina that you should do the mitzvah and you put yourself in sakana, Ein Rishai over here.
Why?
I don't know why.
We don't know why. Thank you.
Rabbi Akiva had a special limit by Talmud Torah of the Rabbin, but in general, if you can be Mekayim Mitzvah without putting yourself in danger, then you don't need to do it publicly.
It's also Darabana. We have a different din versus maybe.
Yes, pursuing this, so it's not really.
I was saying yesterday at the Kiddush, so when I was a kid in Crown Heights, so we had a youth group. So the head of the youth group was Mayor Kahana. That's what he was, head of the youth group, just starting JDL at that time. I was never very good with the nunchucks, and wasn't my koach, you know. But at that time, there was a problem of there was a problem in Crown Heights of crime problem. Crime problem means that the non-Jews in the neighborhood would be bothering Jews in the neighborhood and saying, take out a knife and say, give me your money. And the rule of thumb at those days where you give them your money and you run away. And so what do you do on Shabbos? You don't have money. So the Lubavitcher Rav, Rav Marlow, Olav Shalom, a person. So he was the posek of Lubavitch. So he said that on Shabbos, everybody should carry a couple of single dollar bills in their pocket on Shabbos and give them, like somebody comes, your money or your life, give them the dollar bill. That's what he posket. So I remember his, like yesterday, I remember Mayor Kahana standing in front of us and says, money in your pocket on Shabbos? Put a switchblade in your pocket. Mace in your pocket. Nunchucks on your belt. What ain't the money in your pocket on Shabbos? So, okay, two different drachim of how to deal with anti-Semites. Okay,
Don't go out.
Huh?
Don't go out.
Okay, this is the question in Israeli politics on Hayom Hazeh or Kehayom Hazeh. This is really the question. What is the right way? Basically, I just look. I'm reading your Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky, and anybody who thinks that they should light Hanukkah candles outside, Einoi Mevin Matzav. What was his lashon over there? Einoi Mevin Matzavenu b'chutz la'aretz. So okay, that's what he says. The last rishon here that I want to quote in B'shas HaSakana is the Ritva, and the Ritva says that B'shas HaSakana Menichal Shulchan V'dayos. So the Ritva says, famously quoted in all the Piskei Halachas, the Ritva says that that Sakana doesn't mean Sakana here. Sakana means it's a pain in the neck. And that could be there. Chashulcha brings this, for instance. He says that according to this Ritva, Sakana is just one example of why you should light candles outside. But let's say another example would be it's snowing outside. There's other examples. Chashulcha says that's enough. Snowing outside is enough to. And in the Middle Eastern countries, when they went to Bavel, went to Persia, it wasn't snowing so much. Maybe raining once in a while, but it wasn't snowing. It wasn't the type of ruchos. It wasn't buffalo, you know, to light candles outside. I mean, I'll tell you, Shasa Sakana. If somebody, let's say, where I grew up in Buffalo, New York, would have lit candles outside, not that they would have arrested, they would have put them in a mental institution. Like for even going outside. We go out like crazy. So Chashulcha says any inclement weather, according to this Ritva, is a P'tur. Not only that, he says that Behechatesa, that I just share with you this Chashulcha, Behechatesa, that you can light outside where there's such ruchais, such winds, wind's going to come and knock it out, and then you made a bracha levatala, because it's not been seen to last for a half hour. You'll tell me maybe get some kind of a glass box and put it around it. So he says, who says you're yotze with a glass box? Lashon the Aruch HaShulchan. And we find that you can't make a bar esh, ba'ashoshes through a glass window. You find erva ba'ashoshes, which is not the same thing as erva shaloi ba'ashoshes. Who says you're even yotze in a mitzvah with a piece of glass?
So what about lighting the window?
Oh, so what about lighting the window? They didn't have windows. They didn't have glass in their windows. Time of the Gemara.
In Eretz Yisrael, when there's
also didn't have glass.
In Eretz Yisrael, the shas that there's very few Yidden. Is that also called Shasa Sakana?
So, okay, we have I'm just giving you like a Likutei Shitos over here. Comes the Gra, Sifkat Nalef, comes the Gra and he says, learn the Gra carefully, comes the Gra and he says, look, if it's Shasa Sakana, you light inside. If it's not Shasa Sakana, you light outside. Simple. And if it's not Shasa Sakana and you can light outside, if you light inside, you're not Yotze. And that's where all of our problems began with this girl. So when the Talmidei Agra, know this history, when the Talmidei Agra came to Eretz Yisrael, so they were Noyeg Kagra, and they said, okay, we're coming to a new land, we're coming to a new place, we're not in Lita and Poland and all these, difficult places to be. And the Talmidei Agra immediately, and I want to tell you this, I checked this, the Talmidei Agra immediately started lighting outside. Hi, the Arabs, okay. He said this is a different, it's a different place. And if you fast forward that to Liyamenu, it's very clear, not like the Aruch HaShulchan that the poskim of Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Yoshev, but long before Rabbi Yoshev, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, the poskim of Yerushalayim, the Gedolim of Yerushalayim, they said to light outside. Here in Eretz Yisrael, should light outside. Some of them even go so far to say, "Achshav shezachinu l'hartzeinu hakedosha." It's just beautiful language. Actually, we get to come to Eretz Yisrael, so we know that the Talmidei Agra were a little more Zionistic than they let on. But Achshav sheganu l'hartzeinu hakedosha, we shouldn't take advantage and go back to the din of the Gemara of lighting outside. Now, it comes out a very interesting thing that for generations and generations, according to the Eidos of the Aruch HaShulchan, by the way, that's what the Aruch HaShulchan is good at, if I may say. What does Klal Yisrael do? Tachlis, what does Klal Yisrael? The poskim tell me, the real poskim tell me more so than the Mishnah Berurah in the terms of what the Minhag Yisrael is, like what do Jews do? There's no such thing as lighting outside. There was a posik. Very big gadol, I think. Rav Arenberg. You heard of him? The Dvar Yeshua. Heard of him? So Dvar Yeshua was the Rav of Tel Aviv right after the Holocaust. He was a gadol. He was a big Talmud of Rabbi Yosef Engel and Rabbi Arik. From that world of gedolim. It was considered by everybody to be a big posek. And right after the Shoah, Chief Rabbi Rav Herzog asked him to move to Cyprus, where there was a lot of refugees, and take care of all the agunas and everything that are there. People coming together, no husband. Where's my husband? Husbands without wives, wives without husbands. And he lived there until the whole refugee problem was over. And then he was invited to be the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv. He was the chief rabbi of Tel Aviv. He wrote a sefer Dvar Yeshua on Shas and Dvar Yeshua on Halacha. Beautiful, beautiful svarim. Like Al Derech, the Poilusher Gedolim of like Rabbi Yosef Engel, very, very beautiful svarim. But everybody, including Rabbi Yoshev, took it into consideration. What he said, everybody took it into consideration. And he writes, absolutely, here in Eretz Yisrael, you have to light inside. Inside, he says, no, everybody's thinking, okay, Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv wasn't Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv was also Rebbe lived in Tel Aviv. Yeah. At that time, the big chaseres of the Rebbes were in Tel Aviv. There were Gedolim lived in Tel Aviv. Rav Kook lived in Tel Aviv, or a little earlier. And Tel Aviv, yeah, it wasn't. Tel Aviv then was like it's becoming now from Shetel. So that's what he said, and everybody talks about it. But what's his svara? I looked inside. Like, what's his svara? This I'm going to cut down to. His svara quotes the lashon of the Itor exactly. Achshav kivat shanagu nagu. This really gets to the Indian that I want to speak with. Kivat shanagu nagu. What does it mean? The minhag changed. The minhag changed. It used to be that we used to light Hanukkah candles. There was a time of the Chashmonaim, let's say. We used to light candles outside. And that was what we did. Pesach Beis be bachutz, and it had to be this high and this low and all that. And it's all gone. That halacha is done. Says the Dvar Yeshua. It's all gone already. And he even claims that al pi Kabbalah, the mikum of the menorah has to change. But to me, this is, if you've been listening for the last 2 months, like here you have, according to him anyways, and according to many poskim, I would say, in fact, Rav Yisrael light inside. Certainly in Chutz La'aretz, everybody lights inside. Even here in Eretz Yisrael, most people, okay, you go to, even, I'll tell you something, when I was a yeshiva bacher, so, there was the briskers used to light outside in front of the buildings in Mattersdorf. Rav Scheinberg lit on his table. So people were apologetic for him. Well, lights on his table because a lot of people come in, hundreds of people come through his house, and that's why he lights on his table. But I'll tell you, I have a kasha on that shot. Not that I asked him. I don't remember having this conversation with him. But the yeshiva itself, the Bachar, everybody lit in the dining room. Now there's a big, beautiful chutzner in front of Torah Or. Like everybody could have gotten a box, and Torah Or was known for every chumrah that could possibly be. I mean, lucky everybody didn't walk around with 10 pairs of tzitzis over there. So it was because it was against the rules of the yeshiva. But boxes for Chanukah. I mean, like everybody, I know people that didn't sit outside in that chutzner in the summer because they were worried about Tzeveya, because the sun was going to, they're not allowed to tan yourself. I mean, there was like machmir malgavi. I'm not saying you can't walk. I'm just saying that there was all kinds of machmirim there, but nobody lit outside. We lit in the dining room. There was a window in the dining room. Never been there, It's big, gigantic, like a picture window that went out to the next apartment building, and that's where they lit. So it's not so pashut to me that everybody, like all chashuva people, light outside. I don't think it's true, and I think even here, Rove people talk a light inside. Just where we see all the outside, and we want to do it the right way, so we light outside. And I'm not even here. I'm telling you to light inside or outside. I'm trying to bring out a different point in the lumdus and the history of it. But according to him, this Dvar Yeshua, if you light outside, you're not Yotze. It simply changed. Like so many different things in Klal Yisrael change, it simply changed. The correct place to light is inside. Rav Yoshev Behedya says loikad Dvar Yeshua. He doesn't discount it. He says that since the Briskerov and others lit outside, so we should light outside. The Chazon Ish, not clear that you should light outside. It's like he's a little bit ambiguous. Chazon Ish, I think, lit inside. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Chazon Ish lit inside. Am I right about that?
Rav also
lit inside. So yeah. So the thing with these Gedolim, they say there's a lot of traffic. That's why they lit inside. But okay, not so pashut. There could be a lot of traffic outside too. Rav Shlomo Zalman, I saw a whole record of Rav Shlomo Zalman. Like there was for 25 years, like a video camera on his, like 1 year he lit inside, 1 year he lit outside, one by the Pesach Besa. We ever heard of Rav Shlomo Zalman's house? So you go up steps. I was there many times. You go up the steps to his house. Then he had a study on the right. He had a window. So sometimes he lit by the door, sometimes by the window, sometimes on top of the steps, and sometimes on the bottom of the steps, and sometimes he lit 2 menorahs, one facing to the other street in Shari Chesed. So I don't.
Outside.
Huh? Outside, yeah.
Is there a deal whether window has a tzad outside to it?
Yeah. As I said, there's a deal. Let's just talk for a minute. Is my point clear, though, that you could see such a thing in Poskim that the minhag can actually change the din, and like leave it alone. You don't go back to this concept, which is kind of thrilling to me but scary to me. You don't go back to the din of the Gemara even if you can. We're not there anymore. So now let's go back we have a couple of minutes left. Let me go back. Sternbach, I saw last night, so he discusses this, and he wants to know how is it even possible, he quotes the Dvar Yeshua, how is it even possible that people light inside when there's no sakana outside? He says, Tachlis, nowadays, it's not a real sakana. People walk around with their stribel outside, people walk, it's not like that. It's not, in most places, it's not a real, so there's kosher butchers, there's kosher bakeries, it's not like the Yiddishkeit has closed down yet in Chutz La'aretz. So how could it be that we don't keep the din of the Gemara? I understand there was a Shas Chak, you go inside. So he says three pshatim. One pshat is that it was a simple case, as the Aruch HaShulchan says, he doesn't bring the Aruch HaShulchan, it was a simple case of the weather. Simple. Nuchalimer b'pshitus debaratzois hatzvarnius ruchos ugeshamim mitzuyim ma'oid b'mei Chanukah v'alkein efshir lahadligos b'chut sheyichabenu haruach v'av she'efshir lahadlikim klischuch yisaviv shlo yichabenu haruach anoy poi baratzois akdoisha ulai saver ulai sagi. They held that they didn't like the glass boxes. That's a chiddush of Eretz Yisrael. So he says it could be just the weather changed everything. In other words, when we went into Golus, so it just simply the halacha changed Hilchos of the Galusa that we light inside because it's the weather conditions. Then he says something more interesting. A second possibility is he says that, which actually spoke to me. He says, we have Shas HaSakana down wrong. Shas HaSakana, when you think it's a Shas HaSakana, might be mindful of Rashi and the Mechaber, but just let's say a word. Shas HaSakana, we tend to think that if I do this mitzvah, I'm going to get shot. So you asked, by the way, who asked you that? So what, but it's a Shas HaShmad. So Shas HaShmad, l'chor, you have to get shot. So first of all, that's a Bach's kasha. But Rabbi Akiva Haber says that this is not true. This is not true. That's only by being over a mitzvah's leis essay. But a mitzvah's essay, it's not true that you have to even b'shas hashmad die not to do a mitzvah's essay. So that's what he says. There's a raya. I think Tosfos says. I didn't see this Rabbi Akiva Haber, but I think Tosfos says in Shabbos, maybe Kuf Yud Ches, that the story of Elisha Bal Kanfayim, the famous story where Elisha Bal Kanfayim took off his tefillin. So Tosfos took off his tefillin, turned into a Kanfei Yonah. So Tosfos says, well, is it allowed to take off his tefillin? So Tosfos, I think, says right there that you're allowed to take off your tefillin. You're just not allowed to do an Aveira, Shas HaShmad. So, I don't know. So that's a sheer mitzad but also, this is not an essay when you're over Lysusser. It's an essay and a Lys essay, so it's not such a push in the terrace Rabbi Akiva Haber gives, but Rabbi Akiva Haber says that.
That's the Rabbanan.
Every Rabbanan is a Lysusser, but I don't.
That would be nothing if the rest of the Rabbanan.
Right. Yeah. But he says as follows. What is this? He says that we find Shas HaSakana, we got it all wrong. We think Shas HaSakana is we're going to get our head blown off for doing this mitzvah. Like Elisha Bal Kanfayim. Right? That's what the Gemara says. He says that's not necessarily the pshat, because the pshat is, Shas HaSakana is, even if it's a sakana it's not a sakana for you, but it's a sakana for other people, you're also allowed to go against the Torah. Let's say you want somebody a chayla to eat on Yom Kippur. He has to eat on Yom Kippur. He's chayiv to eat on Yom Kippur. He's going to die if he doesn't eat on Yom Kippur. He says, okay, I'll eat if you join me. If you take half the sandwich, I take half the sandwich, otherwise I don't eat. So you eat on Yom Kippur, you don't eat on Yom Kippur. You do eat on Yom Kippur, right? You eat on Yom Kippur, it's before halacha. You eat on Yom Kippur, if that's what you have to do to save somebody's life, that's what you do. So he quotes here, what a creative mind, Rav Sterbach. He says here, remember the story of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter on Yom Kippur. The story of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter Ki Yadua was that he stood up on Shul and called Nidre. It was during the cholera epidemic. And he said during the cholera epidemic, and everybody chazed the story during the corona pandemic, but he said, he made Kiddush, and he said everybody has to eat. Everybody here has to eat, no exceptions to the rule. But people, why? Because the way it's usually said is because if you don't eat, then your resistance gets lower. And if your resistance gets lower, you could catch cholera. If you catch cholera, you could die. So it was like and Agav, the Rabbanim of Vilna, he was a Rav in Vilna. The Rabbanim of Vilna threw him out of the city because of this psak. So there's a pilpul about it. Not that they disagreed with the psak, but you can't just do that independently. You should have spoken to the other Rabbanim in the city. So they threw him out of the city. And years later, the history is years later, in Vilna, they were having all kinds of problems, and one of the Gedolim of Vilna said all kinds of a pogrom and all kinds of things. And one of the Gedolim of Vilna said years later that this is because we threw out Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. We were Vaza Arodim Gadol. So they looked for a neched of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. They found Reb Chaim Oizer. They brought him in to be the Rav of Vilna, which was no great compromise on anything because he was a gadol ador. But he became the gadol of the Rav of Vilna at that time. But anyways, what's the pshat in Rabbi Yisrael Salanter? So Rav Sternbach says that if you look at it carefully, what it really was that he was afraid. He understood a lot of people could eat on Yom Kippur, could fast on Yom Kippur, nothing's going to happen to them. Not like everybody's going to die, but he said if some people eat and some people don't eat, it's going to be a situation where everyone's going to say, I can fast on Yom Kippur, I'm strong enough to fast. And Babas, he's not strong enough to fast. They were weakened people. So if you're not strong enough to fast, so by me fasting on Yom Kippur, I'm going to create as a Kina Seifrim where you're going to eat on Yom Kippur, and if you eat on Yom Kippur, it's Pikuach Nefesh. So Pikuach Nefesh, that's how he explains the story. Pikuach Nefesh is not it's not just for me, and it's not even just for my neighbors. It's like a concept of Pikuach Nefesh. So the concept of Pikuach Nefesh says that we shouldn't fast on Yom Kippur. It was Kitzoni, but that's what he held, and that's what he did. I mean, whenever I hear this story, by the way, the Pella is not the Rabbi Yisrael Salanter told people to eat on Yom Kippur. The Pella is the people listen to him. Wow, I know when I tell somebody something, they say, are you sure? And then when I'm in a mood, I say, Dafka L'chumra, and they say, are you sure? So, nobody's gives me that pass, right? So, but it's interesting. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter's shul there, whatever shul in Vilna that was, they just, the Rav said to eat on Yom Kippur. We eat on Yom Kippur. He gave out lekach to everybody in the shul, and it made a whole tumult, but they did it anyway. So there were those in Vilna, hundreds of people maybe, that just ate on Yom Kippur, and other ones didn't eat on Yom Kippur. The point is that Rav Sternbach says that's the dibya. We find this also by Kedusha Shvius, find a similar Mishnah. That's the raya that you're allowed to violate Shvius so that the aniyim won't starve to death. There's certain cases like that. But Al Kopanim, he says that the pshat and shasa sakana is that you can live in Lakewood. Is what I'm understanding. Remember, you can live in one of the very Jewish developments in Lakewood and say we can light outside, but you're putting Jews in Philadelphia b'sakana. Because what's going to happen is that you're lighting outside. So everybody's going to say in Los Angeles and Detroit, everything, look, Lakewood, that's the where they do it. Everything is right. They light outside. So Mabela, we should also light outside. If you're the real thing, you light outside. And it can come to some guy in Harlem lighting outside, and it can be a sakana. It comes to the din of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter.
The whole world.
But how's that like
Israel also? So you're still including this type of because
So, so let's just leave it on that note. What about in Eretz Yisrael? So, it could. The way I'm understanding it is, and I'm not saying light inside, light outside. I'm just saying the way I'm understanding it is that the Poskim understood. When I said Poskim, I mean the Talmidei Hagra, and I'm including in the Talmidei Hagra the Brisker Rav, like that line of Fisher Poskim, let's say. So who the Gra says something, you stand up and you listen. Seem to have held that since the takana of lighting outside took place in Eretz Yisrael, right? That's where Shana Acheres. We lit Chanukah Menorah and we lit outside. So this is the Yikar Takana. And all these dinim of Shasa Sakana are probably for Chutz La'aretz, and I'll leave it emes. Here there's police. There's no law saying Baruch Hashem, saying you're not allowed to light Hanukkah candles, or you're not allowed to. You can do whatever you want. Baruch Hashem, we should be thankful for that. You can do whatever you want, and, but the point is that it could be even the most kitzoni. Poskim felt that here in Eretz Yisrael, we could light outside because the whole din, listen carefully here, Rabbi Yaakov, because the whole din of Shas HaSakana never was meant for Eretz Yisrael. Meaning in Chutz La'aretz, it would come out a funny halacha, because the brisker Rav would be in Chutz La'aretz, he didn't light outside, he lit inside. So it wasn't, but it comes out interessant zach that what probably, I'm just saying probably, what the brisker Rav and Rav Yoshev, etc., held is that in Chutz La'aretz, like Rav Shul Kamenetsky says, there's no more outside. There is no more outside. And there never will be. Outside is gone. Like the nature of the mitzvah changed. In Eretz Yisrael, it's not necessarily so that the nature of the mitzvah changed. What I want, so hence you have the Devar Yeshua and the Brisker Rav and the Chazon Ish, and you have all the poskim here saying what to do. There are many machmirim light outside and inside. To be yotzei and in the back and in the window. Like, you could do all kinds of, you could buy at least, I figured out, 240 neiros and have what to do with them, the kids. Or there's a lot of things you could do. But what the main thing I wanted to bring out over here, the interesting thing, which I think is a moyer derech for us in all, Psak halacha, two things really. Number one is, I think Rav Sternbach, who says that this is a klal halacha that we have to know. That when you make a psak halacha, you're not making it for the individual, you're making it for the rabbin. And that's he's learning from Rabbi Yisrael Salanter and Rishonim even, that when you make a psak halacha, it's not looking at the person in front of you. If a gadol, if a Rav Ha'ir or something like that is making saying that's the halacha, because somewhere someone is going to be b'sakana from this, and we're an am echad. And we don't do that. Number two is that there's such a thing, and I just want to keep on underlining and emphasizing this point. There's such a thing as a din of the Gemara, which we're not going through, we're not going back to, because that din of the Gemara was the din of the Gemara. And now when it came Shas HaSakana, the Gedolim Rishonim, the Ritva, the Bala Yitur, the Rashi, everyone's looking for a different reason, but the Shas HaSakana, Aruch HaShulchan, that there simply is no longer a din of outside anymore. Forget about it. Anywhere. So, or third opinion is there's no din of outside anymore in Chutz La'aretz, but in Eretz Yisrael, somehow there is a din of outside. But you can see how, like when we ask, this is what I'm trying to say with all this, that when we ask the question, like, this doesn't make sense, look at the history of how this minhag came. And there is such a thing as batla taiba, batla gzeira, but it's just a history lesson. In other words, we don't paskin by history. You see this in the poskim. We don't go and say, well, historically, the reason why we did such and such, it no longer applies. I just saw an example. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, it says women shouldn't wear red. Now, the bright red, he's talking about the bright shoes, red. Women shouldn't wear red. My family, women didn't wear red, bright red. So the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch brings it. It's brought from different poskim earlier than him. If you look at the reasons for it, no longer applies. Really, no longer applies. But unless somehow or another, some say it was even Kabbalah. Red brings the sun to the world, and some say it's too bright for tznius. There's all kinds of different reasons. It doesn't make a difference. We don't do it anymore. We don't this is something that we were makabel on ourselves, that women don't wear red, as an example. So the Minhagim could be l'chubra, could be l'kula, or it could change the location of the Chanukah candles altogether. And this is the way the psak halacha works. With this, I will end. Yes.
You said that when you're making up psak halacha, you're not making it for the individual, but for the klal, because they're going to learn from it.
That's what I said.
So sometimes we see that many times you can't learn someone else's halacha because it's unique to the individual. Many times we give a psak for that individual that is really not applicable to other people. I'm wondering how you...
I think it probably has to do with the lashon of the posek. So in other words, you could have a lashon where, Rav Yoshev held, the Badat holds, when they hold, it's not talking about what they pass for an individual. So sometimes, maybe a person will go into the Badat, say the Charedis, and speak to the Rabbanim, and they say, the Badat holds like this, so what should I do? Say, for you, it's different. We're not talking about you. It's a very common thing. But what goes out as a hachraza, this is a very, by the way, I found this to be a very yesodistic words of Rav Sternbach, saying that you can't paskin in a vacuum. Ein donen al kol mokim beprotius bifnei atzer, akivan shim nadlik b'chutz yavoyu lefamim b'imkoimos lidei sakana shekol echad yirtza l'kayim hamitzvah tamid b'chutz dafke b'litzvah. Say patroi salu chachmei ador lahadlik b'zman hazeh b'chutz b'chol mokim shema b'imkoimos shainim takana zu yavi lidei sakana. He brings us, by the way, this Yesod, I'm sorry, from the Trumas Hadeshin. The Trumas Hadeshin says you have to be careful to pass. I'm done. By the way, anybody wants to leave? Anybody who, in order to make a psak like some psak. I know Rabbi Moshe was extremely careful with this. I was told once by somebody who knew that he didn't let into the Sefer Igros Moshe tshuvas that he thought were for individuals. You can find a lot of kashas on that from tshuvas, but derech klal, I mean, what he was trying to be careful for, one of the tainas on the ones that came out after he died was they put in a lot of individual tshuvas. But derech klal, like a posik, Noda B'Yehuda, the Chassam Sofer, unless it's just for the sake of learning, they would put those chidushim on shas. But the ones that came out as their shilas and tshuvas are hayras for the dar, and you got to be careful. I was. The Trumas Hadeshin, he brings this, that this is the way, the correct Klolei Apsak,